Hi there, it's Sarah from Inspire Tarot. Today I thought I'd do something a little different. I thought I would do like a message from Spirit using some different decks, see what comes out. So I honour my self-worth by asking for what I want. Yeah, I think this is an interesting card because we quite often feel as though what we want makes us greedy or selfish. But then at the same time, if we don't honour what we want, then we're not being authentic either, and we're kind of people-pleasing and presenting a false self. So yeah, we definitely need to ask for what we want. And the more loving we are, the more we believe we're entitled to things that we want, and we go after what we want. And if we understand that what we want is guided from within by the Spirit anyway, because we know that all real pleasure comes from doing God's will, and we tend to want to feel good. That's just kind of the way we're wired. And if we listen to the Spirit about what we want and how to go about it, then we're definitely honouring our higher self, which is what we should be doing. So I think we should definitely be honest with people about what we want, for sure. Okay, let me pull another one out, see what else comes out. Guidance is available to me now. I know that angels, ancestors and spirit guides are always at hand. I do not walk alone. I think this is one of the beautiful things about the spiritual journey, is that because everything is one mind, anyone that we want to talk to from the past, from the future, from different dimensions, is available to us. Everybody is available because it's all really the one mind. And I know I personally like to think of the Spirit or my guidance as being my own. I kind of like to think of it as my right mind and not necessarily a separate thing. It doesn't really matter how we perceive it, as long as we perceive and have some way of defining the way we receive divine guidance. So some people like to talk to the angels, some people like to have many spirit guides. I kind of think of myself as just having one, and really that one just being my higher self. But there's many different ways, and all we have to do is ask, and the Spirit can talk to us in so many different ways. This guidance can come through in many different ways. If we can't hear it directly from within, if we're too distracted, then we need to just ask the guidance, make it obvious, show us, get the information to me. And then the guidance can come through in ways that they know that, places that you look. So for example, if you're always on YouTube, then they'll put videos in your feed that are helpful for you. Or if you like to read a book, you'll go to a bookstore and a title will jump out at you, or something in the newspaper will jump out at you, or a sign, or some lyrics in a song, or something that someone says. The Spirit will always have a way to connect with you, and you will know when you hear it that it's for you, because you'll just get that resonance with it if you're attuned to the external world. And yeah, we never walk alone, ever, because we're all one, and the information is available to us whenever we ask. And if we can't hear it directly, then the Spirit will always help us, for sure. I feel like those two want to come out. Taking care of myself is a radical act of love. Yeah, we definitely need to take care of ourselves. Take care of our mind, I would say, more than anything, because the mind is all that we really are. The more we take care of the mind, because what happens in the mind creates what the body does anyway, because the body is essentially just a robot to the mind. We have to change things at the mind level before the body can change, because the body is the outpicturing of the mind. Well, the body is created by the mind. You can even take it as far as, if we think that eating unhealthy food will make us fat, then it will. But it's not because the food will make us fat, because the food is powerless. It's the belief in the mind that's then projected onto the food. But yeah, so we definitely want to take care of ourselves. And as we think that we're a human being, we are very torn between our human concepts of what's healthy and what's unhealthy, and the spiritual understanding. And in A Course in Miracles, Jesus does talk about magic and miracles, and that we need a combination as we heal. As long as we're kind of progressively moving towards the understanding that everything is the mind, that the mind is controlling everything. If it makes us too fearful to think that we can just decide that we're better, then we're permitted to project the power of the mind onto a tablet to make us feel better. But really, that's not the way it works. But the spirit doesn't want to create more fear in us, so it's perfectly acceptable to use a combination of things. But it's all essentially the mind doing it. There's no such thing as a mistake. Everything happens in divine order. I'm being guided to learn and grow. Yeah, I love this one. I think this is one of the things about the world. I kind of see the world as a bit of a treasure hunt. And yeah, there are no mistakes, because we live in a world where it's really not possible to do anything right or wrong. Because God created unity and we live in a dualistic world, the duality is the error. It's something that God didn't create. Once you've come away from unity, you've lost perfection. Whenever you try and create perfection in duality, you simply can't do it. It doesn't matter how hard you try. And you'll notice this when you're on your spiritual path, that you feel like you're doing the right thing, and then you think, well, I was trying to do the right thing, but I ended up doing the wrong thing, or doing right by me seemed to upset somebody else. And because there's no fixed meaning on anything, then it's almost impossible to do anything right or wrong in the world, because what we're doing comes from what we think. And if we think a load of nonsense, then it's a mistake. And I was having this conversation with someone at the weekend about when the world is essentially a dream. When we dream something at night and we wake up from a bad dream, we wake up and think, oh, thank goodness that wasn't real. But that's the way the spirit and God would see our waking life. That's not real either. That we're in an impossible situation that we would never be in. And there's no way out of it other than to go towards unity and understand forgiveness and the neutralization of the mind. So when we don't know that, then essentially it's like we're making mistakes, but we're not making mistakes, because we're in an impossible situation, and everything can be reinterpreted by the spirit in a way that happens. So I like to think of the ego projected at a world that's meaningless. The ego then puts an interpretation on it, which makes it more complicated, more painful, and makes it seem as though cause is anywhere and everywhere that it's not. And then the spirit reverses that process and says that everything is back in the mind. Everything comes back to the mind, comes back to our interpretation of concepts, or transcending concepts entirely. And we're just kind of understanding that as we go. So therefore everybody is in the right place at the right time, because linear time essentially doesn't exist. So whenever anybody is doing something, it's always in the now. So they're only ever healing in the now. And consciousness doesn't go backwards, so we're always progressing. We're always learning. Even if we do seem to have to repeat the same lesson over and over, we do get a little bit stronger every time, because it's like cyclical, and we spiral up, and every time we go around the spiral, we end up experiencing the same issue, but the mind is slightly more pure, we're slightly more compassionate and self-loving as we go. So yeah, it's all good. Right, let's have a few more cards from this deck. I communicate with ease and grace. People are willing to embrace what I have to say. So yeah, the extent to which we believe that people are willing to embrace what we have to say comes from within. And this is something that I've learned on my own journey, is that when we accept ourselves, other people will accept us too, because the external world is a mirror. And if we're saying things and people aren't accepting it, then that's our guidance to show us where we're not accepting ourselves. And the Spirit can guide us to people who are comfortable being authentic, where it can feel more safe to communicate. That's always something that we can request. I'm pretty sure that everybody can find somebody that they can speak their truth to. And people love vulnerability. It feels scary to be vulnerable, but the more vulnerable we are, the more people can trust us, because they feel as though if we're prepared to be vulnerable, then it just seems as though they're being honest. There's a lot of integrity that seems to come from being vulnerable. And the more authentic we are, the more we line up with other people who are authentic, just as a natural reflection, because that's the way the universe works. All that I love is more important to me than all that I fear. So yeah, fear shouldn't really be important at all, because fear is false. And fearing things is not a pleasant experience. And I think, things that we used to fear in the past, we no longer fear. As we go through life, we kind of learn. Sometimes we can go more in the wrong direction and we can learn to fear things, but eventually we can end up in so much pain that we have to turn back towards the light. We kind of learn to understand that avoiding things and fearing things is actually more painful, because we're moving away from our divine self. Our divine self is one with everyone and everything. So when we start to fear other people or fear other things, then we're kind of moving away from that safe spot. And love is really the only power. God created the universe so that love is power. So when we start to move away from love, we start to move away from power, and then we feel more fear. So I think the spiritual journey often can seem very counterintuitive, because the ego is always trying to convince us, stay away from other people or stay safe. But really, it's the opposite direction. The more we can lean in, the more we can trust, the more that we can see that the universe supports us and that we should move towards what we love. We are given these desires internally about things that interest us, and the Spirit uses those things to help undo us. The Spirit is very kind in that way. It wants to motivate us to move towards it. So it lets us do that by focusing on the things that we do love, and then helping us reinterpret things as we go in a loving way. Compassion is my compass. I am willing to hold space for the experience of others. Yeah, so this kind of ties in with the teaching from A Course in Miracles of all human behaviour is an extension of love or a call for love. So it makes it very simple. So we tend to, before we know this, we tend to believe that some people are loving and some people are horrible, some people are attacking and offensive. But actually, when we learn to reinterpret everybody's behaviour that's unloving as something that they do unconsciously, as a cry for help, then it kind of, to understand it from this concept, we have to elevate our mind into this higher understanding that they actually need love and compassion because they're confused. So when we think that somebody else is lashing out at us, they're actually lashing out at their misperception of us, never at us. And if we react back in a negative way, then we've accepted their interpretation of us as correct. So we always need to stay in the right mind and have compassion for other people when they're doing things that are unloving, but also have to have compassion for ourselves, that we can't really be attacked. And I think it just mentioned somewhere in the Course something about only illusions battle with themselves. And that's true. There's nothing to battle with in oneness. If we always go back to the common denominator, which is love, then it's easier to be compassionate with other people when we've, particularly I found this on my own journey, as I've kind of healed something, then if I see someone else doing it, I can see it from a place of kindness, because I went actually directly through it and I had to heal it myself. So it's easy to be more compassionate, for sure. When I move my body, I feel empowered, cleansed and strong. I think moving your body is a really great way to shift negative energy if you feel restless. Just like a change of scenery, to go out for a walk. I like to walk. I find walk almost meditative, and I can get in touch with spirit really easily when I walk, really in touch with my higher mind. So there's many different ways we can move our body. Some people like to do yoga. I think yoga's a good one, because you have to be very mindful when you do yoga, because a lot of the positions that you get into are uncomfortable, so your mind does have to be in control to hold them. And I also think that moving our body, if we have a lot of anger, we can channel it into exercise in a way that doesn't take that out on other people, but it helps transmute it. Especially if we have mantras in the mind at the same time as we're doing exercise, thinking in a positive way, it just really helps to shift things. Right, so that's my video for today. I hope it helps you. These cards are really sweet. They are Spirit Junkie cards by Gabby Bernstein. I love you all. Bye.